Alright, so this is a review of the mono LP of the soundtrack from Help by the Beatles. Now, before I do this, I need to talk a little about the drugs of the Beatles. They did cigarettes and alcohol pretty much their whole lives, as far as I know. I could be wrong about Paul and George on that account, but in Germany, they got introduced to amphetamines in order to do the grueling sets that they did performing there. And then, once they became famous, they got to meet all kinds of people they were fans of, like Chuck Berry and Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan turned them on to cannabis, which in Spanish is called marijuana. And this influenced their music. Also, Bob Dylan himself influenced their music, and it shows in this. So they decided to make a second movie. It's called Help. And they, just like with Hard Day's Night, they wrote a whole album worth of songs for it. And just like on Hard Day's Night, only half of them got actually used for the movie. And the other half of the soundtrack is instrumentals. So it starts off with Help! And that's followed by The Night Before. And after that comes an instrumental, which is on the back of the album. It lists the tracks, and the instrumentals are not named, but on the actual album they are. So the first instrumental is From Me to You Fantasy. That's followed by You've Got to Hide Your Love Away, a John song. And then George gets his one song in this, which is I Need You. Then another instrumental called In the Tyrol. And then a Paul song, Another Girl. Then there's another instrumental called Another Hard Day's Night. It's a shame they didn't do an instrumental version of songs of Help for this, but instead they used Hard Day's Night. I think Help must have been written on a deadline, and so it wasn't ready before they wrote these instrumentals. That's followed by Ticket to Ride, and then another instrumental called The Bitter End / You Can't Do That. And then another John song called You're Gonna Lose That Squirrel. And finally an instrumental called The Chase. So, yeah, so that's all there was on the soundtrack for this. It's in mono. I got it in mono on purpose. This is when stereo starts to make a difference, but the mono sounds perfectly good. And I'd highly recommend it. So give it a listen.